Hey guys, welcome to video 5. My name's DJ Phil Harris, this is DJ Mini, and in this video I'm going to be teaching you the most fundamental transition you're ever going to learn on these DJ decks, which is called beat matching. So without further ado, let's get straight into the tutorial. So in this video we're going to be teaching you how to do your first beat match. And what I'm going to suggest is you actually load the same track in track A as you do track B. This is because the two tracks will obviously sound good together. They're the same track. They'll be the same speed and they'll even be the same key. Tracks that are in the same key typically sound good together, but if you use the exact same track, it's going to make this quite easy. I also suggest you find a track that has a strong beat from the beginning and has a strong beat at the end. So I can scroll right to the beginning of this track here and listen, you can hear it's got quite a strong beat. And if I put my finger on it and scroll right the way to the end, it has a beat right up to the end. Which means we've got two beats that we can play with. And since this is called beat matching, it's so much easier when you have a beat to play with. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that this track is coming to an end and this track is starting. So we're going to beat match this track from the beginning into the end of this track. So put your finger on the wavetable and just move back so it's towards the end of the song, okay? And then with this track, we're going to put our finger on and go right to the beginning of the song. In fact, you're going to make sure that it's right on the very first beat. So what you'll find, and actually I need to take a moment to explain to you what I mean by beat. A beat is that drum. Dum, 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 dum. Now there are 4 beats to a bar. So what you're going to notice on the screen is that there are a faint yellow line and then there are faint white lines, and every 3 or 4 white lines there's a faint yellow line. So there's a yellow line, then a white line, a white line, a white line, and then another yellow line. The yellow line signifies a bar. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, new bar, 2, 2, 3, 4. New bar, and that's kind of how it works with music. You need to understand that. So what I'm going to do on this second track is I'm going to go right to the very first beat of the very first bar, and I'm going to set a hot cue. Now remember, you could do the same thing with the cue button if you wanted. I now have a hot cue and a cue button set at the exact same place. Now remember, if you're wondering how to get rid of hot cues, you have to hit the shift button and hold the hot cue. That will remove it, but we actually want it, so I'm going to keep it there. The other thing to bear in mind is because this is the same track, if I set a hot cue here, it will also appear over here. Now, with this second track, we want a point that we can kind of get back to, which will allow us to practice blending away from this track. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this back to a certain point, and I'm just going to set a hot cue at the end where this track is kind of coming to an end. Now the first thing you need to practice is just tapping along with the beat. So I'm actually going to use the cue button here. I want you to press play over on this track here and tap along to the beat. Okay, so you practice tapping along and that's fairly simple. Next thing I want you to do is I want you to tap, and then when you think you've got it, hold it down and press play. And I want you to see how well you've got those lines lined up. So the lines on this side should line up perfectly with the lines on this side. Let's give that a go. As you can see, my lines are not perfectly lined up. They're slightly out. So in order to correct this, you have to use this jog wheel to nudge the track faster to make sure those two lines line up with each other. But here's the thing. What you don't realize is these jog wheels have 2 separate functions. The one is where you can put your finger directly on top and it will stop the record. This is what allows you to do a hard fast forward or rewind. That's the thing that also allows you to scratch. But what a lot of new DJs don't realize is there's a secondary function to these. If you just touch the outside, you can do a nudge and you can just slowly nudge the track forward or back without actually stopping it. So if you click along with the Q button, then press play, and the two tracks are slightly out of line with each other, you can nudge the outside of the track to nudge them so they're perfectly in line with each other. So let's get the tracks back to the original position and let's give it another go. Now the two tracks are perfectly in line because I've nudged them so they are perfectly lined up. There's one last thing you need to practice before we go on to doing an actual blend. You have to make sure that the beginning of each bar is lined up. So you have to make sure that the two yellow lines are lined up with each other. So you have to now click along with the Q button and wait until you see that yellow bar line come and hit play as that yellow line comes. Let's give that a go. There we go. I've lined it up so the two yellow lines are perfectly lined up. We're almost there. Now it's time to actually do our first and final, well, not our final, our first beat match. So you're going to move this crossfader all the way to the left so we can only hear this track. We're going to do exactly this and wait until we see that yellow line, hold it down and press play. Once we've hit play, we're going to line up the tracks and then we're going to slowly nudge this across in a very slow and methodical way from this side all the way over to this side here, which will gradually blend away from that track and into that track over here. So let's get it back and let's give it a go. And you just did your first professional sounding beat match from this track over to this track, and no one in the room or nightclub would have known that this track had come to an end and this track had just begun. It sounded like you flowed perfectly from this track to this track and it sounded super professional. So you can pat yourself on the back. You've just done your very first beat match. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure you tune into the next video. I'm going to be giving you some top tips and tricks that you can do on these DJ decks. Super pumped. Neither of us can wait to see you there. Check it out now. Ciao.